Hi, everyone. So as I mentioned before, I'm from Apano. Apano stands for the Asian Pacific American Network of Oregon. I think there's currently some work to change that to Pacific Islander because no one identifies as Pacific American. But we aim to, or our mission is to unite Asians and Pacific Islanders to build power, develop leaders, and advance equity through organizing, advocacy, community development, and cultural work. Our story is we were founded in 1996. Um, while our API communities have made generations of contributions to American society, our shared history is that of persistent discrimination and inequities. Apano has worked for social justice for about 15 years and continues to evolve as Oregon's leading Asian and Pacific Islander grassroots advocacy organization. So the purpose of this presentation is to give y'all a redistricting 101 overview. And so I will go into that right now. So what is redistricting? So redistricting is a process that happens every 10 years, right after the census. So how it works is in 2020, we had the census, and redistricting comes right after the census because the census will tell us about population shifts, how certain districts have grown, how certain districts have shrank, and over time, districts become uneven in number, like you see in this graphic at the top. So redistricting is when we redraw districts to make it so every district has the same number of residents. So an important term in redistricting, at least for us, is communities of interest. So communities of interest are communities with common policy concerns. Usually we want them to be maintained in a single district and they share a common story. So examples of a community of interest would be, say, like a Chinese community or a community of people who shop at the same grocery store or attend the same church or go to the same school. So community of interest is just a community that has something in common. So another important term in redistricting is gerrymandering. I think this is the part of the process that people are most familiar with. So gerrymandering is the act of redrawing lines in order to control the votes of a certain area. So in this graphic over here, it shows you partisan gerrymandering. So you can see that there are 60% blue votes and 40% red votes. And so gerrymandering for the blue side would be drawing the districts in this way, where there are a majority of blue votes in all 5 districts. So then they win all 5 districts. And another example of gerrymandering is how you can redraw the district so red wins. So despite having 40% of the vote, they win a majority of the districts because of the way that they have drawn the lines. The main thing that Apano and We Draw Oregon, which is the coalition that the redistricting coalition that I'm a part of, is fighting against is racial gerrymandering. So under the Voting Rights Act of 1965, racial gerrymandering is illegal. So you cannot draw the lines draw the redistricting lines in a way that discriminates against racial minorities. And that is what we are trying to fight throughout this process. Another form of gerrymandering is partisan gerrymandering. So partisan gerrymandering is essentially what is seen in this graphic over here. It's when one party draws the lines to benefit them over the other party. Usually partisan gerrymandering is used as an excuse for racial gerrymandering because partisan gerrymandering is not illegal, unlike racial gerrymandering. The Secretary of State in 2009 had a chance in the case of Ruco versus Common Cause in order to ban partisan gerrymandering, but they decided to leave partisan gerrymandering up to the states. So as of now, partisan gerrymandering is not illegal. So what does redistricting in Oregon look like? Right now, we are in the legislative session, this legislative special session for redistricting. So on September 3rd, they published their first draft of maps. And September 8th through 13th, there were legislative hearings. And on September 27th, this is the deadline for the legislature to pass a redistricting plan. If the legislature does not adopt maps or pass any maps by the 27th, it becomes the duty of the Oregon Secretary of State to propose new state legislative district maps. So it's not listed in here, but September 29th is when the Secretary of State publishes their version, their first draft of their maps, and when they create their own People's Commission of Oregonians. And October 6th through October 12th is when there are hearings with the People's Commission of Oregonians about the legislative maps. So the People's Commission of Oregonians is a commission of 20 community leaders that the Secretary of State will handpick that citizens will testify to, and then they will compile all the testimony, all the points that they thought were important, and then give that information to the Secretary of State so that they can redraw a map according to the community's interests. October 18th is the deadline for the Secretary of State to draw the maps, and February 8th is when the reapportionment plan is effective. So what are the criterias of districts for redistricting? Every district must be contiguous, which means each district or each part of the district has to be in physical contact with some other part of the district. All districts have to be of equal population. They must utilize existing geographic or political boundaries. This is a criteria specifically for my coalition. We do not want districts to divide communities of common interest. And finally, they must be connected by transportation links. So these are no longer relevant because these were hearings for the legislative session. But the legislative or the Secretary of State People's Commissions will have hearings through October 6th through the 12th. And if y'all are interested in those dates, I can send you that after this this meeting. And is that the end? Okay. We also have testimony templates for the different congressional districts. So all hearings, even the Secretary of State hearings, will be held in different congressional districts. Currently, we only have 5 congressional districts, but they will be adding a 6th one after the reapportionment plan is effective. And we have drafted 4 templates for congressional district 1, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. Okay, so the Legislative Council or the Legislative Redistricting Committee released 3 initial sets of maps. The House Democrats released Plan C, House Republicans released Plan B, and Senate released Plan A. This is a link to the maps. I believe, Kara, you have this presentation, so you can use the links on the presentation. They also released a new set of maps, which I believe drastically improve on the maps that they initially released, which also lets me know that all the organizing we did for testimony really worked. As you can see right here, in the initial set of maps on Plan C, House districts 46 and 48 split the J district in half, down 82nd. And that was a problem with Plan C that we strenuously worked to change. And I believe that that is the end of the presentation. Something to note about redistricting is that it is the basis of all political work, because the districts that are drawn determine transportation links. They determine how much power each community has, because if a community is gerrymandered in a way where their voice is silenced because they are not a majority in their district, they are no longer represented. And fundamentally, redistricting is about voting rights, because you can heavily gerrymander certain communities to completely erase their voice from the conversation. Okay, I think that is it. Does anyone have any questions? Go for it.
So I'm in Arizona, and we have a Republican, our legislator is Republican heavy, and our governor is Republican. So I really believe that during the 2020 census, we were undercounted because the face of Arizona is no longer Caucasian, it's people of color. And so we're, as community-based organizations, we are pushing back in regards to how they're planning the redistricting, maps, because it does give, it does actually represents our voting, our ability to vote and have a voice. So in Oregon, I guess my question is, wouldn't, as much as you're doing, public hearings and the grassroots organizations are coming together, isn't it still a big lift to, if the people who are the legislators, the state government, if you're pushing up against them, isn't going to be difficult? I mean, they still have that opportunity to draw it the way they feel. Like, for instance, it was a certain political party. I'm just going to throw out Republicans. I'm not, sorry guys, I'm trying to be non-political here, but just an example. If it's politically driven and the power in the House right now is Republican, are they going to use everything they have to push back against grassroots organizations trying to make it equal and making sure everybody's voices are heard?
I think that's a very good question. I think part of our strategy was to keep our testimonies and our organizing to be nonpartisan. So the legislators and the representatives would listen to communities because they have to, and that is what the point of these hearings are for. Um, I'm not sure about the process um, of Arizona, but I know that in Oregon, a lot of my my predecessors did a lot of work to make sure that our communities would have our voices heard. Um, one of the members of the redistricting committee in Oregon came directly from Apano. She used to work with us, and when she was elected, um, when she was elected to her seat, uh, our political director at the time was also her chief of staff. Uh, Not to mention, there was a lot of organizing work to put Shemia Fagan, which is the Oregon Secretary of State, in office. So we have done uh, a lot of work in order to make sure that the representatives on the redistricting committee and in these key places of power have our best interests in mind. But you are completely right. That's a completely valid concern. Um, while they are supposed to listen to us, they fundamentally don't have to. So what we are doing is we are just organizing as many people to um, to testify to make sure, or at least do everything that we can to make these maps as fair and representative as possible. And if we don't believe that the maps are fair, then we also have the ability to sue and bring these maps to a panel of 5 judges and then have them decide. But that is a whole nother organizing tactic that we aren't prepared to enact at the moment because um, I'm sure, as y'all know, a court case and hiring lawyers takes a lot of resources, a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of energy. And so we are just trying to keep it within the redistricting process as of right now. Was that helpful? I'm glad. Okay. Any other questions, responses, statements, comments?
Yes, this is Lloyd. As I'm sure you know, that Speaker Kotek has rescinded the 50-50 representation on the redistricting committee.
Right.
And this is almost certainly, I think, pushes drawing the map into the Secretary of State's realm. And so now I think we will be dealing with the map as produced, that will be produced by the Secretary of State. The Republicans are calling foul now,
Right.
and so they'll probably end up suing, because of they say that that the deal that the speaker struck with them is off. But of course, the Democrats are saying, and I think with good reason, that the Republicans, their maps weren't drawn in good faith either. But that's so typical throughout the United States. That happens over and over again. And that's the reason it is so unusual for the legislature to come up with a compromise in their maps. It did happen 10 years ago, and that was an amazing feat between the Democrats and Republicans. They actually agreed on the maps. We were hoping that this could happen this time, but it doesn't look like it's going to. So I think there will be suits brought, but I think that that is still important for Apano and Ken and all of our groups to have our voice heard, and so that we have as much representation, concentrated representation of our communities of interest as possible in the maps, whoever draws them. But it is a game changer with this recension of the 50-50 deal.
Yeah, I completely agree. Some people might understand or see the passing the buck to the Secretary of State as us starting over again, but I disagree with those people because I think at the very least the connections and the work that we have put in to recruit people to testify will make our jobs easier the second time around for the People's Commission's hearings. But more concretely, I think that the Secretary of State will take the new maps that have been heavily influenced by the testimony that we organized to draw her her redistricting plan. So I think everything will be much easier the second time around. And if the Republicans sue, then it would be pretty easy to, or not easy, but we have already done a lot of work to recruit people for testimony. So we could probably use those same connections to recruit people to write amicus briefs. And that's also why I'm very excited to work with y'all, because I think personally that there is a lack of representation for the Pacific Islander community during this redistricting process. And I would love to work with y'all to bring your voices into the fold and advocate for your communities.
Oh, I agree with you. That's really a good analysis. And Secretary, I know Shemaya very well, and she's really a good listener and a fair person. And I think that the work you've already done is very useful and it won't be wasted. And the more people that you can bring to support what you've already done and are doing is really good. And so you're to be highly commended for your work.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions, or does anyone else want to talk more about redistricting?
If anyone has any specific questions from the presentation, let's ask those now. And if not, then we can maybe have Arthur stop the screen share and all just come back into the Zoom room and maybe talk another minute or so. But does anyone have questions about anything specifically from the presentation? Because you're getting quizzed on gerrymandering. Just kidding. No quiz, no quiz. I'm just happy with how that was explained to me. I never really fully understood it, to be honest, just like that before. I just want to know honestly from you guys, are you now more clear on why your voice matters within this process? So like, can you guys think of an example of something that might be impacted by this redistricting that would impact you or your family or community in either a positive or a negative way?
I think to get the ball rolling, it's important to know that all transportation links and like, say, for example, bus routes are drawn along these district lines. So bus routes will likely change after the reapportionment plan is passed or enacted. Okay. I will drop my email in the chat. If y'all have any questions, you can email me directly. If not, if you also like lose my email, I'm sure Kara can probably direct y'all to me if you have any questions.
Can indeed. And we will be getting ready on our end, Arthur, to be able to at least a handful, not me. I mean, I'll be there in solidarity, as will Lloyd. Lloyd might speak, but we will work with our team and our acting president of our board, Beanie Moses Mesabut, who's based in Union County, on preparing some of us to contribute in that session with the committee members. So know that that's definitely on our radar, and we'll be utilizing that meeting space as what we're planning for. And I think this is a really good first step for all of us around more of this storytelling to influence public policy, storytelling to influence social impact, and ultimately this larger legislative engagement workshop training that has been in the works for CAN and our COFA communities specifically for a long time. So I think the timing is really good on this. And I don't know if any of you want to share any last thoughts before Arthur jumps off, like related to past experiences you've had. I know some of you here have given testimony in both a public hearing setting and in a more focused setting with some elected officials. So if you have any questions right now about the opportunity that Apano has created, that we're graciously being brought into to speak directly with the members on this committee, that opportunity will be in just about a week from today. So any last thoughts or questions about that?
No, not real questions, but just Arthur, thank you for the presentation. Gerrymandering, that sounds like a bad word. I don't know why I always thought it was, but and knowing the difference between the political and the racial side of it, which is when they do the districts. And I did not even know that it would change the bus routes and all that. That's kind of, it would affect the community if you're not really paying attention to stuff like that. But that's a great way to kind of be more aware and understand how important. I've never been in a committee where you have to be in any of those things, but I would think it's scary. I don't know why. But thank you, Arthur.
Yeah, of course. Like Kara mentioned, we are currently planning 2 events. One will be a chance for the community to meet representatives. So I have just contacted today Representative Con Pham Representative Winsvey Campos and Kathy Way for a community town hall event with the representatives so that we can ask them directly about the redistricting process. For context, Representatives Pham and Campos are currently on the House Legislative Redistricting Committee. And I believe Kathy Way is the Secretary of State's Chief of Staff. So they will have very important insights in the redistricting process. And we are planning on having that event on exactly 7 days from now, Tuesday, September 28th. And then I believe October 3rd, we are going to have a town hall event. Or actually, no, not October 3rd, October 5th, I believe. We're going to have a town hall event where we go over the maps that the Secretary of State publishes and figure out with community what we want from the maps and what we want changed.
And are these virtual events or?
Yes. Okay.
If I could, I'd just like to add a little historical fun to the term gerrymander. Then this infamous term originated in 1812 in an incident in which a Massachusetts governor, Eldridge Gerry, redrew the district lines to benefit his political party. And it was kind of represented a salamander, the way he drew the line. Looked like a salamander. Now his name was Gary. Therefore, the term gerrymander came about because it looked like a salamander. And the lines really favored his political party. And ever since then, anybody that draws a line to favor their political party is called gerrymander since 1812.
Gerrymander. Thanks, Lloyd.
Yeah, so it has to do with salamander.
I'm gonna remember it so much better now. I'm serious.
And Eldridge Gary of Massachusetts in 1812. So it's got a long history, and it's been going on ever since. And I don't know how we're ever going to solve this problem of gerrymandering, and it's, you should see some of the gerrymandering districts in Texas. My God, they are incredibly complex and just lines, and they're just drawing in lines that will give their political party the absolute majority in the House. And in many states, the party that has the most representatives in their state legislature are not the predominant party. That's because of salamander type districts. So, and that's what our good friends at Apano are trying to avoid.
Yeah,
So,
thank
you, Apano.
Thank you very much for that history lesson. I would like to say also that for more context about gerrymandering, if y'all have heard of the show Last Week Tonight, John Oliver has done a wonderful piece that you can find on YouTube about gerrymandering. It's amazing.
He is amazing. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. So the more specific we can get, the better our testimony can be and our influence can be. So I sent you a little note, private note mentioning that. So
yeah, thank you. I will be contacting y'all probably tomorrow about helping y'all to organize a text banking campaign to text your members in order to recruit people for testimony, because Apano is going to start recruiting for the People's Commission's hearing starting tomorrow.
Great, great. I at one time was the chair for about